Hey guys, it's me Shasha, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is a little bit last minute, but I honestly am really excited to make it because I haven't made a video about school yet really. I mean, I did a back to school one, but I didn't really talk about school in that. So as you can read by the caption, today's video, I'm doing basically a dumb girl's guide to studying and getting good grades in high school. So I'm a sophomore and I'm definitely not a genius and I'm not like the best at school or anything, but I can say that I am someone who never really did that well in school growing up, especially in elementary school, but I kind of forced myself to get better at school, and mainly by focusing and having a good schedule and planning things out. So I kind of wanted to help upcoming like freshmen or even like middle schoolers, whoever's watching this. I kind of wanted to help and just show you guys what I do to study and help myself get better in school. I just wanted to make a disclaimer before we start this video. I don't know pretty much what I'm doing. I'm just doing what works for me, and I would suggest before taking anything that I say to heart to figure out what works for you as a student, because everyone learns really differently, and honestly at the end of the day that's what matters, that you do things the way that is easiest for you. So I'm going to kind of go through each subject and how I study for each subject, because it's very different for me, varying, especially in courses that I'm better at and worse at, if that makes sense. So first, we're going to talk about math. As someone who is not good at math by any means, I have to study a lot in math to get a decent grade, which isn't fun, but it's something that I need to do if I want to get the grade that I want. And I would highly suggest going to tutoring and getting the help that you need if you do struggle in math the way I do, because I for so long would not ask, I would ask people for help, but I wouldn't get actual help from a tutor or something, because I saw it as embarrassing, or it just made me less than or made me dumber, and that is not at all true. I don't understand that idea that getting help is you being dumb, because I think it's the smartest people need help because they can recognize the fact that they aren't the best at that subject, and that makes them smart. So yeah, get the help you need. But as for notes and actually studying, I try to take really well written out notes in class, because I'm definitely the type of learner where if I'm writing it down then I'll remember it. So first I would figure that out. I used to think I was a visual learner until I realized that a picture won't stay in my head, but words will, if I've written them out or if I've repeated them or I've read them over and over again. So yeah, in math, taking notes is really key, those little details. And I'm not going to talk too much about math because I still am it's something that I'm still struggling with, that I don't really have too much knowledge on yet. I don't fully know how to get better at math. I know how to pass the class, but I'm not fully educated on how to do the best that I possibly can in math. So maybe that'll be in our How I Study 2025 video. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about science, or if you're going into your freshman year, I think you're most likely taking biology. That's how my school works. I'm pretty sure majority of schools work that way. So if you're going into biology, it is so solely based off of the fact if you're better at English or you're better at math. So the reason it's like that is because biology is so English and reading and comprehension based. So if you're someone who's good in English class and likes to read and can understand and comprehend when they do read, then bio is not something I think you have to worry too much about. It wasn't that bad at all. The biggest thing I can say, it's a lot of just memorization. That is mainly what biology is. You need to be taking class notes, and if your teacher is not doing notes for you, because I know a lot of teachers don't do that, which really sucks, but if your teacher doesn't do notes for you, I would go online. There's a ton of biology notes that are really like easy to understand, and biology videos that are really easy to understand. So there's a lot of resources on there. I'll link some like ones that are really good right here. And then I would also say, as for like learning, there are a bunch of biology Quizlets that you can find online. They literally will save your life because it's so quick, and biology is so about just memorizing your terms. So if you can get those memorized, you really have not a lot to worry about, because there's not a lot of math involved, or like not a lot of like solving a problem. It's a lot of just recalling things. So those are my main two things. Just use Quizlets, use quizzes, whatever. Make your own flashcards if you can. Like, that's great too for memorization. Any of those things. It is definitely memorization based. Read what you need to, watch videos. Honestly, in high school, I think will really like help a lot, because there's a lot of teachers out there who kind of throw you into the world and expect you to know what you're doing, and you don't. So you low-key have to teach yourself sometimes. I know I have teachers who like don't really help you out, and like if you ask questions, they give you these like wishy-washy answers, and it's like, okay girl, then like I just wouldn't have asked if I knew you were gonna answer like that. Thanks. Why are you even here? Which is really mean, I know. But it's like when you're in the middle of learning something and you like cannot get it, and you have a teacher who also seems like they don't know what they're doing, it's like, so why are we learning together right now? Because you've been teaching this for the last 10 years. You know what I mean? So that's why YouTube, big help. And writing things out. I don't care who you are. Okay, I get that some people learn visually, but there has been like multiple studies proving that if you write things out, you memorize them better. So like, say you're watching a video, you're learning visually, but if you write out what they are saying, if you write out the visuals that they put down, you will comprehend that, and it's not going to leave your brain. You see what I'm saying? It's so much more helpful to do it that way. So next, I'm going to talk about English. I feel like English is not that bad, but that is for me. That is for me personally speaking here. It has been a subject that I've never really struggled with, and I can totally understand how you could struggle in English though. In high school it does get more rigorous, and if you're thinking about taking an honors class and you're not really much of a reader, like meaning like you don't read ever and you don't like reading and you like don't comprehend when you read, that is honestly like, I think number one, I wouldn't recommend taking honors English, just because there is a lot of reading that goes into it. And like if we're reading a book in class, you have to read very fast, in the way like they'll assign like 3 chapters at night or something like that, and you have to read it. And I guess that the reality is that I think a lot of people dumb down English class, and it definitely isn't like the most difficult honors class you could go into, but it's the work. It's not that the work is hard, it's that it can be a lot, especially depending on your teacher. I know everything is always depending on your teacher, but I know teachers like in my school itself, like who have like this book that we're reading, and they'll assign like 6 chapters for one night, and you have to get it done to understand, and you have to take a quiz the next day. So it's like you need to look at the teachers that you have available for the class, and look at if you're up for taking that commitment, I guess you could say. But if you are someone who doesn't like reading, doesn't read often, and when you read you can't comprehend, I wouldn't recommend taking honors English, because it is a lot of that. And I am someone who doesn't like reading. Like I have never been a reader. I don't read a lot, and I don't struggle in English, but that is because even though I don't read often, I'm still able to comprehend when I do, if that makes sense. So as for like notes and stuff for English class, the notes are like, I would write down mainly like grammar rules. If you're like someone who's bad with grammar, I'm someone who's bad with grammar, that's what I do. When the teacher's talking, if she says or he says anything about grammar or anything like that, I jot it down really fast because I forget grammar rules a lot, and there's a lot, like comma splices and stuff like that. But with notes I actually have like a little tip for English notes. I always like to like do a header, right? And I always leave like a little top section for like vocab words, because even when you're writing notes down for English class, you can have like the explanation for each one, but you want to have like a little like vocab section, so you have just all of those key definitions that you learned that day in one spot, because it's a lot easier to just flip back to. That's something that I would suggest. And highlighting key parts, like when you're reading, that's what I mean. Like annotating, so important. I'm someone who never annotated before, but high school you're gonna have to annotate, so I would get used to it as soon as you can. Annotating while you're reading, and figuring out what's important to annotate. I always try to annotate, like, if you're reading and you understand what's going on, you're already comprehending what is happening in your story, but there's something that just is confusing you and you're just not getting how it is like adding to the story, I would highlight that. That's something that's good to highlight. I would also highlight something where it seems like it would be significant in the future, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense in the context of what you've been talking about in the story. If it feels like a little bit off to the point where you're like, maybe this is going to come back later and it's going to make sense, I would highlight that. So constantly looking towards the future of what is going to maybe happen is a really good key for annotating. So you're not just annotating like who, what, when, because you can obviously do that if for like your own self, but like I guess if a teacher were to see that you just highlighted the main character, the setting, and like the basics of it, they probably wouldn't give you points for your annotations, because that's not what they're looking for. Annotations are meant to highlight the most significant parts. And I also just like to write down my opinions throughout. Writing your opinions, like if there's a question, like a moral question throughout your text and you want to answer it, you can do that. That's a good thing. Having an opinion in an English class, they eat that up. They eat it up. I also would say, like, talking to your English teacher is really helpful, because every English teacher likes to talk, and when you talk to them more, they understand your writing more. It's really interesting. Like, the best way to put it is, like, when you speak to them, they start to understand the way you think and what type of writer you are. So once they're starting to grade, like, essays and bigger pieces like that, they understand your thought process, maybe even before they start reading, because they know you, because they know what you're like. And this is one of, like, the only classes where you can really get the opportunity to do that, because, like, in math, you can't talk to a teacher and hope that they understand that you said 2 + 2 = 8. Like, that's not how it works. But in English, like, it really does work like that, because everyone has a different opinion, and if you just present it in your own personality, but in the beginning of the year, they don't know that. They don't know that it's your personality till later. So let them get to know you, because it lets them get to know your writing as well. So, yeah. Okay, lastly, I'm going to talk about any AP history classes. So, I took AP World History last year. I really love that class. Like, genuinely, I love history, and I had so much fun in that class, and right now I'm taking APUSH. Things haven't really taken off with APUSH that much right now. We're kind of just, we started, like, period 1, but it's nothing too heavy or rigorous whatsoever. So I'm not speaking for every AP class at all, because I really don't know about every AP class, and it's going to be different depending on your teacher, the class you're taking, and how serious you are about it. Like, all of those things are really important with AP. So if you're not considering taking any AP classes throughout your years in high school, you can log out, because it's kind of like, I guess, AP is more specific. So I specifically am talking about AP World History because that's what I took. That's all I can talk about currently. But I didn't mention this before, but I do want to make these videos on how I like study, what I would suggest for all my classes after I've done them, because I think it's helpful and I think it's fun. I want to make them every year throughout high school. So yeah, I guess you guys will get to hear more about like the AP classes I'm taking and all the classes I'm taking throughout the years. But since I've only taken AP World History, I'm going to go through what helped me the most with AP World History, because it's not easy. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy. The work is okay. So I feel like with every AP class you take, I can say this generally, it truly depends on your teacher. And I've said that the whole video, but like when it comes to an AP class, it like really, really depends on your teacher, because there are some teachers that the first week in, they'll start talking about what's on the AP exam all the way in May. Also, if anyone's confused on how like AP exams work and all of that, I'll explain that really quickly. So how an AP like class works is basically you like sign up for the class, right, the year before, like you normally do with other classes. And when you get in, you need to register to College Board. So College Board is the account that you're going to be taking all of your tests for that year on, and it's also where your score will be released after you've taken the actual AP exam at the end of the year. The AP exam is always in May. Every class has a different like time in May or different date in May that they're taking their tests. So last year, for example, AP World History took their class May 15th at 8 a.m. And that's for the entire nation. The entire nation, every high school student or even non-high school student, whoever is taking that course, AP World History, was taking it May 15th, 8 a.m. And it's very strict in the way that if you don't take it that day, you need to let people know. Like you need to either not register for it, and I think there's a different protocol for if you are busy, like if you are out of the country or something happens, there's a different protocol for that. I'm not sure what it is, but like you have to be there for that test if you've registered for the test, and you can't take it a different day. If you've registered, you like that's your one day to take it, and that's what your one time. So yeah, it's very strict. But anyways, kind of jumping back to like the beginning of the year, with history classes, with AP World History, my teacher personally he taught well. I liked the way he teach, and it did teach me a lot, but he didn't teach particularly close to the actual curriculum for the AP exam. I more so think he taught us world history for life, and that is really important and great, but I don't particularly think he prepared us for the test. So a lot of that preparation had to be done at home, and that's okay because I think it taught me to work harder. So I started studying in like April. Again, I told you guys my test was May 15th. Starting in April was way too late. It worked out in the end, but I started way too late. You should start in March at least. I would say March because you're not gonna really remember it if you start in like January or something. Like if you start in January, you're not gonna remember that all the way to May. But you could totally like make flashcards and stuff in January and keep reviewing them until May. That way it's all fresh in your brain. But if you just start watching all the videos then and stuff, like it's not gonna stick, basically is what I'm saying. So I would say minimum start in March, maybe like mid-March, depending on the date of your test if you're taking AP World. And the way I did it, your biggest resource is going to be Himmler's history. That's how I did it. I know there's some other history YouTubers out there, but Himmler's history was the main resource that I used. I actually bought his like study guide pack and his note pack or whatever. I'll put it down what I bought specifically on my screen right now. And I did try to watch his videos and use those note guides and type while he was talking, but I did it for a couple of the units, okay? And it was not, I could tell that it wasn't staying in my head. So my solution to this problem was to honestly do it my own way. So after I would watch one of the note guide or one of the videos and I would write in my note guides the first time, I would go back and I'd make flashcards for it. So this is my Unit 1 flashcard from last year. So I would basically rewrite the entire thing in shorter forms and ways that my brain could comprehend it, and I would highlight certain things different colors. So, for example, this first unit was about state building in Song, China. So my number one worry, I swear, I was so scared for this, and I rightfully so, because it is completely valid when you're writing a DBQ. I'm not gonna explain what a DBQ is. You should search it up, because there's a lot of nuanced things that go on in it, and I don't want to mess it up for anyone. But if you already know what a DBQ is, you know that you need examples, and a lot of them most of the time. You need specific historical examples. So what I did was I went through and I was originally I started looking for just the examples, because I just wanted to have examples in case this was my essay question, and in case I needed it for an SAQ, or I needed it for an LEQ, whatever it was, I needed examples and I needed them fast. So I went through and I highlighted, I would write down something, and if I thought it was an example, I would highlight or underline it. And then the second thing I would highlight or underline was context. So if you're wondering why you need that, it's because pretty much every essay you're writing in AP World History or any AP History class, pretty much, I'm not sure how it works for the English classes, but every history class in the AP industry, basically, you need contextualization. I'll teach you guys what this is, because it's really important actually, and it's something that people mess up so often, but it's actually so much easier than everyone makes it seem. I know my teacher, I really liked him, but he made me so confused with contextualization, and it made it harder to understand when it's really not as difficult as it seems. So basically, all a contextualization is, it comes right after your intro. So your intro, you're stating your reasonings as to why your idea is right or your stance is correct. You list minimum 3 reasons, and then your context is basically you're trying to set up so say, I'll give you guys an example because it's a little bit easier to understand that way. Say we're talking about the age of exploration, okay? That's one period in the history, okay? Age of exploration. So specifically, this will only really work for world history. You can't do this in a lot of the other history classes, not APUSH. But since world history spans from 1200 to present day, you can get away with around 100-year difference between the time period you're talking about and your context. So contextualization is basically just explaining what happened either before or after this. So say you're talking about the age of exploration. You either need context from before or after, and it has to be 100 to 200 years before or after the time period you're talking about. So if we're talking about the age of exploration, you could mention the fact that prior to the age of exploration, Constantinople was taken over by Islamic groups and turned into Istanbul. Therefore, they needed to find a trade route around there. That's why they started finding sea routes, and that led to the age of exploration because they started using the sea to navigate. That's just an example context. You just need context to explain what led to this moment. And if you're doing a before, I wouldn't do a before contextualization unless you've already learned about like all of the history that you're learning about, because it's kind of hard to go forward when you don't know it's forward, basically. So if you're doing a before, okay, or I mean an after your time period, a good example would be the convention for women's rights. I'll put the name right there because I kind of blanked on it, but that convention, okay? So what did it lead to? What happened after this convention? What was caused by this convention? Well, you could go a little bit further in history and talk about the 19th Amendment, the fact that women got the right to vote. That was maybe not completely directly related, but definitely this convention had influence and was connected to the 19th Amendment being passed. There you go. There's your contextualization. So contextualizations are really important, and that's why I highlight anything that seems like it could be a context. So, for example, I highlighted built on innovations of Tang rulers. So if they asked me to talk about some of the inventions of the Tang rulers, I could use that as future context and say it was still used in Song China even after the Tang. There you go. That is another thing I highlight. And lastly, outcome. So I think highlighting outcomes really, really important in history because everything is like cause and effect. So example is I highlighted first minting coins. So that's your context. Okay? And your context leads to your outcome, led to the paper money. That's what it led to. It's pretty self-explanatory. But I did this for every single unit almost. I wasn't able to get through it, and that's why I say I should have started earlier, but I didn't. And I really wish I did. So that's my little rant. Once you're getting closer to the exam, I would start making your flashcards, doing what I explained. And for beforehand, if your class was given a textbook, I would definitely read through it a little bit at least. What I did was with my textbook, I would I would put in little sticky notes for every like important topic that we covered. Like say, French Revolution, I'd put like a sticky note there so I could flip back if I needed to. And that's pretty much all I did. I just made sure I had looked through it at least a little bit because it does give you a lot of info, but it's very dense. The AP textbooks are very dense, so it's a lot to read through. I wouldn't suggest going through all of it. I tried to, and I just could not get through it. Other than that, if your teacher does not give you guys study guides, make your own study guides using a lot College Board. College Board probably has like MCQ questions. Do those. Oh my gosh, I cannot say this enough. If you go to College Board and you go to your A-Push section of it, or AP World, whatever you're taking in history, do the multiple choice questions and the SAQ, all of the practice questions. Practice. You want to get in the rhythm of being able to answer those questions really fast, because for multiple choice on your exam, you're going to have 55 questions and 55 minutes to answer. So you don't want to be slacking and get behind time, because then that takes time out of your essay writing questions or time, and you have 40 minutes to write a short answer question, and you have, I want to say 55 minutes to write a DBQ, which a DBQ used to sort 7 documents in your essay. So definitely practice multiple choice, practice writing those essays on College Board. It will save your life if you get normalized with it. And honestly, that's my biggest tip. Just practicing, making your own study guides if you can. You can use Quizlets online. And another thing that's really helpful is timelines. Find some timelines for your class online, and you do not have to memorize them. You don't have to really even know dates, to be honest. For AP World, you don't need to know dates. You need to know chronology. That's why I said you need to have the timeline and at least memorize the chronology of it. You can memorize a few dates just in case, like you really need it for an essay, but you really shouldn't. I don't think I memorized a single date. Maybe the only date was 1492, which was when Christopher Columbus set sail. That's the only date I can remember. And even coming to my test, I didn't remember any dates. You need to know chronology and at least the decade that your thing happened in, your event happened in. But yeah, those are all my tips. I know today's video is very dense and it's not that fun. I know, I'm aware, I'm so sorry. My next video will be more fun, more uplifting, if you will. But just let me know what type of videos you guys want to see. I'm kind of running out of ideas right now because school just started, so I've just been kind of busy. And I also, funny enough, just got back from my Paris trip on Tuesday night, and I went back to school Wednesday. So I just have been working. So yeah, just let me know if you have any video ideas. I want to do fun videos. I know this video was not that fun. But yeah, other than that, I hope you guys have amazing days, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye!